Hello there survivors, and welcome back to another build tutorial in ARK Survival Ascended. Today I'm going to show you exactly how to build this Greek Astraeos Villa, which is of course perfectly made for the new Astraeos DLC map, but you can use it anywhere you want as long as you install the Astraeos custom cosmetic skins. Besides those skins, I'll also be using a little bit of the Frontier skin from the Bob Tall Tales DLC, although you could definitely replace that if you do not have that one. As always, if you enjoy seeing these build tutorials, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course, feel free to leave your suggestions for future builds you'd like to see down in the comments below. And of course, as with most builds, we'll start with a foundation. Now, we want to make it 3 wide in total, so just like that. And then we actually want to make it 15 long. So we'll just continue to keep going like this until we have 15. So it's quite a long building. Then we can, of course, make it go up by 3 in total and then just start filling in the entire structure from start to finish to get our first foundation. So this is going to be the foundation for the main building. Then we want to go to the right side here of the front of the building, and we're going to go in by 3, and then we'll expand it by 4 in total and make it 3 wide, and then just start filling in this part as well. This is like the little addition from the main building going outside. Then here at the back, we want to actually add 1 from the end. We want to go in by 4 like this. And we want to do the same on the other corner. So 1 in and then add 4 in total. These are going to be like little balconies of porches at the back of the build. Then we're going to go all the way over to this side. So where we made the little addition. Then we're going to go in the middle right here. And we're going to add 10 foundations in total. So that's 6, 8 and 10 in total. And then we can build a little square of a 3 by 3, which is going to be the Watchtower. So we're kind of just making sure that you can see if you have enough space for the entire build. On the other side, we also go in by 1. We'll add 2, and we can actually bring this all the way back into the main building, and then of course fill in the gap. Then we'll go in by another 1, and this is where we go extended by 7 in total, just like this. Then we can extend it by 3 wide and make this one 4 long, just like this. That is going to be the greenhouse building right over at this corner. And then here at the front, we should be able to go in by 1 and then add 3 foundations coming out. The other side, we're doing the same thing, 3 coming out. That should leave us with 2 in the middle that we can fill in and then bring out by 2 in the front. And of course, 1 more in the back. And that is kind of the layout for the whole entire compound. That is about the size you'll need space-wise, so you can see if the area you're working with is the right one for this villa. Now, to get started, we'll focus mostly on the main building back here, and we'll start with adding a pillar that is 6 high in total right at the corner, and of course 1 going down into the ground. We'll do the same thing here for the other side, have these pillars going up like that, and then every gap of 3 we want to make sure that we add another pillar. So the easiest way is to just first go around adding in these pillars, because you can also kind of check if everything is still the right size, and that should all line up perfectly. And then we can extend all of these pillars to be the same height, which is going to be like the foundation for this villa here at the back of the compound. It's going to be quite a tall but narrow building that will give you plenty of space inside to use and to make sure that you have size for even some of the larger structures that we'll need. And then we're just going to make sure that all of these pillars are the right height to kind of get the skeleton for this main building here. Then we'll go to this section right here that sticks out. We want to go up by 4 pillars, and we'll do the same thing right here on this corner. Go up by 4, go up by 4 here as well, and in the middle here as well. So every 2 basically we get those pillars. So this section is going to be slightly lower, which is kind of going to be the main entrance. Then over here to the side of the building, we want to add 3 pillars going up. In this case, we want to have 1 going down into the ground. Then after 2, we can have 3 more pillars going up, a gap of 2, 3 pillars, and a gap of 2 and 3 more pillars. These are going to be the covered walkways and the balconies on the top layer. We can take out the walls for this side building and add a layer of 2 walls right here. We can add that same layer right there. And then we can also make sure that we fill in this wall, at least until that height, and this one right here on the corner. Then we can switch to our windows, add 2 windows there, add 2 windows on this side. And then we can take a look at the front here. We want to make sure to have 2 quarter walls on both of these corners. We'll do the same thing right here at this height as well. In the middle, we can actually add in full walls again, and then we can have a double door here on the bottom layer as well as here on this layer. And of course, add in the doors and the windows to all of these to get things going. Then we can add a normal door right there in the corner as well as a normal wall right here. We can then fill in the ceilings like this. We can take out the staircase and make sure that it goes down right here, leading us back down into this ground. So this is basically an easy way to get up from the first layer to the balcony on the top layer. This is also where we want to expand this ceiling layer all the way through until we meet the taller pillars here. And that's going to be our balcony and the walkway underneath. We can actually already add in these slope walls, which are going to be the nice curved pieces to get those nice curved arches going on here. And if you want even more detail, you can actually also add them here on the inside of the build, just because, you know, we get some extra nice little details that way. On this corner, we can actually fill in the wall all the way to the top. And we can also start filling in these walls all the way across to the other side, so that we have this one completely filled in. Then here in the middle sections, we can actually also add in our walls like that. And then we can have windows to either side of these walls as well here on this corner over there. And what you can actually change if you want to, you could also add another door here, so you can also access the balcony from this side, and you don't necessarily have to go into this little side building. But of course, you could save on the door if you need a wall to place something against. Then we can actually fill in all of the windows and the doors with their proper windows and doors. All right, then it's time to finish this section by adding in the slope walls right here on the end. Adding in 2 quarter walls right next to it, and another slope wall to top of this section of the roof. There's actually 2 ways to do this. If you're unofficial, you kind of just want to make sure that your ramps are within the boundaries of the walls, just like this, nothing special going on. And then we can continue the roof or the ramps all the way until we reach where the wall is going to be, so just over there. If you're not unofficial and you have overlapping settings enabled, what you can do is add a little quarter ceiling. I usually make sure to just add the whole layer then, because it's a little less random that way. First, before you fill in this last section, this is what you just would do unofficial, just fill in the roof. But if you have overlapping, you want to add these ones first, so you can still have that little bit of an overhang here on the outside. Of course, unofficial, you could also just go for the full roof or ramp overhang here on the outside. But this way, it doesn't line up with the rest of the building and it just adds a little bit more depth into the building. And of course, here at the side, we want to add in the railings for our balcony too. And there we go. We have the first little balcony ready to be used. And for some extra details, if you want to, you can add in some railings just below the roof here, just to kind of add like support beams going up. All right, as for this entrance, we first of all want to just fill in this with a full wall right there. And here at the bottom, actually, we want to do the same thing. Just fill in that wall completely like that. Then for the other sections, however, we want to start with a layer of quarter walls and bring up these quarter walls all the way around the side until we reach the top, and then we can just go back down the same way. We actually are going to do this for all of these sections, so we want to make sure that we add in a layer of quarter walls all the way around so that we can have some very nice and tall windows in between. So for this section, the same thing, bringing up these quarter walls, then bringing them across and bringing them back down to where we started. Then we want to add a double doorway into this. That's going to be our window all the way from the bottom until we reach the top. For the bottom, we want to add in a stone beam, or just any beam actually. And then at the top, you want to do the same thing if you're on official settings, just like that. And then you can fill in doors everywhere. But in unofficial settings, if you have overlapping, we can actually make this into the curved pieces from Astraeos skins. And that just adds that little arch at the top, which looks really, really nice. And then we can still add in the doors like this, which are we're going to turn them into grates to make them look nice. So on the other side, it's going to be the same one for this window, adding in the double doors, the beams at least the bottom, maybe at the top if you're unofficial, adding in the doors for the windows, and in unofficial settings, overlapping enabled, we can do the arches there at the top to create some really nice looking windows. Then we want to take out our quarter foundations. We want to add 2 right here and 2 right there so that we can have 2 normal foundations right there in the middle to basically change the snapping point. Now we should be able to place the gateway right in the middle. Make sure to flip it around like this, and that is going to be the entrance that we have for our building. Now, Astraeos structures actually have the weird habit of creating little gaps between a gate and their walls. So what we want to do first is add 3 thin pillars going up and 3 thin pillars going up on the other side. Then we actually want to change this to the second variation of the Astraeos skins, from top to bottom, and then we can add in the gateway, flip it around like this to have the nice main entrance, and without worrying that there's going to be any gaps to the side. We can of course also add in the actual gate, and then we'll take out our quarter walls to fill in the gaps between the gate and the rest, all the way until the top of the gate has been reached. Above that, we can actually just fill it in with full walls going all the way across, and then it's time to start the rest of the roof design for this first part. We want to have quarter walls going across the middle, just not the ends. This is where we'll have a slope wall like this, and then of course we're gonna have 2 slope walls right there in the middle for the end of our roof here. Then we can actually take out some quarter ceilings, which we want to start adding at the side of the building, going all the way until we reach the pillar. We'll do the same thing right here, add a little lip of these quarter ceilings all the way through. Then here we want to start with a stone ramp going up by 2 in total. We'll do the same thing from the other side, which should meet in the middle. Then we can just bring this all the way to the front. Now on official settings, all you want to do is just fill this in, and you can maybe go for the full overhang on the outside. Again, if you do have overlapping available, what you can do first is add these little ones just with a slight half overlap, and then just overlap them into each other so that we have the overhang on the outside, but we still have the roof normally on the inside, just like this. And then of course we want to make sure that we have beams across the top of all of this. Make sure if you have this overhang to also add the beam over there. And it looks a little bit weird now, but as soon as we start skinning, this is going to look just fine, and that means that we have the entrance to our villa all ready and done. Alright, then it's time to start finishing this first layer of the build. We'll start right here in this corner where the 2 first layers are just going to be regular walls. Then we can bring up the walls all the way in the corner and the other side here as well, leaving the middle open. We're actually going to fill in this wall entirely to just the first 2 layers. We'll have walls there, and then every time we'll keep the middle open for now, and the rest we can of course start adding in the walls just like this, which should mean, especially if we look from the other side, that almost everything is filled in. We of course want to fill in the top layer here too, all the way across. And then here, what we actually want to do is add in some slope walls. We're going to create some more curves there to make it look all nice. Then here at the tall window here, we're going to have 2 quarter walls at the bottom and at the top. Then we're going to once again have the double doorways in the middle, just like this. We can of course add in the doors themselves, have a beam at the bottom. On official settings, have a beam at the top. If you do have overlapping, we're going to once again do these little slope walls to create that nice little curve going on for the roof, or the window I mean, which is going to look really, really nice. Then for all these sections, we actually also want to create some windows. They're going to be slightly smaller, but we'll start with adding the double doors. Then we add in the doors themselves, of course, just like that. Having the beam at the bottom and at the top if you're unofficial, but otherwise, once again, we're going to create these sloped arches going into the window, because that's going to look really, really nice. And then all we really need to do at the top is add in that little layer of quarter ceilings along the edge of the entire building, because that will need for the roof that we'll work on later. But yeah, first of all, just going all the way across to the other side with these little quarter ceilings. Then we'll move our attention to the left side here of the building. Now, a fair warning, we need to change these foundations. Just to be safe, I would pick up these pillars, because in some cases, as soon as you pick up one of the foundations, they could crumble down. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. Just kind of depends what the game has decided that it's snapped to. But yeah, we want to remove these last layer of foundations for now, because we want to slightly alter the layout. We want to have 2 quarter ones at this side and 2 quarter ones here at that side, and then we can add 2 right back into the middle. We'll have 3 thin pillars going up, 3 thin pillars going up at the other side. And then once again, we're going to apply the second variant of the Astraeos skins to these pillars to already change them, so that we do not get any gaps with our gateway. We want to add that right one in the middle, and of course adding in on gates ourselves. And that is kind of why we wanted to change the layout of these foundations, just so that the entrance is right in the middle of this, and we can add some stairs in front, and there we go. Then we'll take out our quarter walls, fill in the sides of this all the way till we reach the top, and the same right over here. And then we can have a full layer of walls just like that. Then we can also have walls at the sides just like this, and we'll have a double doorway right there in the middle. We'll have a beam at the bottom of this and at the top if you're on official settings, once again filling in the doors. And if you have overlapping, we'll add in these to get that slope top of this window once more. We'll have quarter walls in the middle, 4 places here. Then we'll have some slope walls going up like this, creating this pattern for the end of the roof. The other end of the building is actually also quite simple. We want to start with 2 walls at both ends like this. Then we'll add the double doorways right in the middle of those. We can add in the doors themselves. Make sure to have a little beam at the bottom and at the top on official settings. And then if you have overlapping, we can actually overlap right through them just like this, creating a nice little arched window. For the next layer, we're gonna have a little bit differently. We're gonna have a door right here. Then we're just gonna fill this in all the way to the top of the pillars. We're gonna do the same thing right here. And then here at the bottom, we want to fill in the quarter walls. The same thing here at the top. And then we can fill it all in between with the double doors. Again, repeating this. We've done this a few times now. adding in all the doors, of course this one too. And if you have overlapping available, of course we can make this arch at the top of the window again, and of course adding the beam at the bottom. But we want to make sure that we actually add the balcony here, so we want to start from the middle and add these triangles right along. So we want to make sure to add a railing around it, of course, and actually you want to have some slope walls going back into the window or the building, and these are going to be once again the curves to kind of have a nice little bit of detail around. Then the top layer here, the middle four are going to be quarter walls. We're going to have slope walls going up like this and creating the end of our roof. All right, then the back of the building, what we want to do is add 3 windows right here in the middle of all of it. Then we'll have a double doorway right at this corner of the added foundations, and then the same thing right over here. Now, these are just like little porches. You could keep them completely closed off with railings if you just want to use them like that. Or, of course, you could create some extra entrances, have the stairs either here or there. I'll leave that up to your own imagination. Probably if you just have a landscape like this, you could use it like that. In my build, I had it on a cliff. So I turned one of these into a staircase down the cliff and had a little fishing dock. But of course, that is very dependent on the landscape. So for now, we'll just have 2 stairs going in like that. And we can have some railings around this little porch area just to kind of spruce things up a little bit. Then it's time to take out our pillars, making sure to add 2 high, then a gap of 2, 2 more, and 2 more. And of course, make sure to connect them back into the ground to make it look the best. Same thing here over at the other side. Just exactly the same thing with these pillars being too high from the foundations. Then we want to take out our ramps. We want to find the right snap point, add the ramps in just like this. If you have difficulty with this, add a temporary wall here so you can snap to that instead. Sometimes makes it just a little bit easier, but yeah, in some cases it will just give you the right snap points. You can fill them in like this. You can take, of course, the railings, add them underneath here as a little bit of extra support for these roofs. There we go. And then we want to add in some arches. So we want to snap the slope walls right to the end of these so that we get some nice arches for these pillars. And we have a lovely little porch going on here at the back of the building. So just like that. Then we want to make sure that we take out the full walls. Here at the corner, we can actually go up all the way from the bottom to the top. Here at the first area, we just want to make sure that we fill everything in with full walls. Just the bottom 2 layers going all the way across the building. There we go. And then the last one here, we can of course bring all the way up to the top again. Then we want to add in some doors and windows. So make sure to add these in the middle, and then this one once again, of course. Now, then we want to make sure that everything against the pillar is going to be a full wall, bringing them all up like so. So just the ones next to either side of these pillars, we'll bring those all the way up to the top of the pillar layer. Same thing right over here, making sure to bring them all up to the same height. Then we want to have some quarter walls. First of all, place 2 of them here, 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 and back here as well, filling in those little gaps. Actually, here in the middle, we don't want to do that. That's going to be separate from the rest. But the other ones, of course, we want to do that because that was all that was left down below. First of all, for these sections, we want to make sure that we add the quarter walls here at the top as well. Same over here and same over there. In this middle one, we actually want to add in a double door right there. We then want to add in some triangles just like this in this shape. We want to make sure that we have the sloped walls supporting them, because we can make some nice arches, and of course have some railings around like this, as well as some thin pillars on the corners for the roof that we're going to add on the top of this. Then we want to make sure that we add in a full wall right above the door. And of course, we can add in the door themselves. Then we want to make sure that we have the triangle roof. We want to get this snap point right here, add 2 more to the side, and then go around the corner like this. That's going to create a nice little roof for the balcony that we've got going on right here. And then above it, what we want to do is bring out these double doorways. Again, 2 of them right above the door. And then we'll have them filled in, of course. It's going to be another window, a beam at the bottom and at the top. Or if you can do overlapping, of course, we're going to have these slope walls, just making a nice little window like that. These double doorways, of course, we want to start adding them into all these other gaps that we have made to create some nice big tall windows everywhere. There we go. Then we can of course fill all of these in with the doors. There we go, all the way through to the end. Have the beam at the bottom, potentially also at the top, or of course we can go for the little slope walls to create that nice little shape to our windows that we've done many times before now. There we go. All of them are gonna look just like this. Then we're pretty much done for this side as well, but we want to of course create this little lip of the quarter ceilings just as we did on the other side, so that we have an even roof to work with. And we want to just make sure that we bring this from one side all the way to the other side of the building, just following the wall that we've now fully created and bringing it all the way back over here. And then it's time to get started on the roof. Now there's a slight difference between official and non-official. If you're on official settings, you just want to start the ramps right here and go along. If you want to overhang on the outside, you'll have to do a full roof, as we can't overlap. But if you do have overlapping available, you'll start right here and then you can just continue to go from one side all the way to the other. So that's a slight difference, but you can still do either way and it will still look nice. It's just, yeah, one has slightly more options and just a little bit more of a subtle overhang. We want to make this too high and then continue to bring it back to the other side, just like this. And then of course we're also going to be filling in the roof for the other side. There we go. Get the right snap points. Once again, just the same as before, just to line up with the roof that we already have. And we want to just bring this all the way back over from one side to the other, just to create a nice roof over our heads, right? This is what we need, just like this, bringing it all the way back to the other side. Then we can take out our beams and make sure that we have a beam going across the top of the roof from one side to the other side, just like this. Now that is the main building almost done. There's a few things that we need to do here on the interior to really make it a proper base. Of course, we have this little place where you have the staircase. You want to make sure to add a railing in there, as well as connect the ceilings back up. Now personally what I did was have 2 ceilings like this, then we can go all the way across, because that means that you could have the industrial forge right over there, and then of course we can add railings around here. If you want to create more space, especially for those industrial forges that can be quite tall, of course you can leave out more ceilings and push this back a little bit further. Because I tried having the industrial forge, it does fit up here of course, but then the problem is getting to this door. That might be tricky. You could of course have it at the other side depending what you want to do with all the rooms, but for most of this we're going to just start filling in the layer with ceilings, creating the extra level here. And I would have most of the storage downstairs and yeah, more of the crafting or your bedroom and stuff like that here on this layer. We also want to add in 2 railings right here, and then this is where the stair will go. So right here we're going to connect it back down to this floor, and then we can have railings along it. If you want to, you can add a pillar here as well to just make it look a little bit more supported. I personally would do only this layer with the Astraeos skins, and then everything like this stairs and railings I would make from the Frontier skin, just because I like the contrast with the wood. Now you could keep it all as one big room up here, but you can also divide it if you want to create like a little bedroom over here. You would create a door right there, and then you can just start filling in this wall to make sure that you create an extra room. Of course, then you would also want to add in these. Now they should line up, so you should be able to still use your sloped walls without having to overlap on official settings. And of course, if you do have overlapping, it doesn't really matter, but you can close off the whole wall like that. And of course, at your door, so that you can have like a separate little bedroom to log out in or whatever, you know, just to have a little bit more shape to the build. And then here we have plenty of storage. If you want to add more details, you could have some scaffolding coming from the pillars to kind of create a little bit more of a dynamic shape, but you will lose a little bit of space. And of course, you can create some shelves like this and some thin pillars if you want to keep your storage on there. The same of here, of course, over here, but here you mostly have a lot of the windows going on. But yeah, that is pretty much the entire villa main building. But of course, now we still have to build the rest of the villa itself, as well as the inner courtyard. Now we're gonna get started on these walls. They're quite easy to make. You want to start with one pillar here, of course, connect them into the ground, leave a gap of 2 each time, and just continue this all the way. Not onto there, because we're gonna have a tower there, so that's just what we're gonna have. And then we want to have double doorways all the way from one side to the other side. Now these double doorways you actually want to change into the Frontier skins. The pillars will keep the Astraeos skins as well as the foundations themselves. Then what we want to do is have a little layer of quarter ceilings along the outside of this one, just to kind of expand on this little wall, and that's going to help us with the roof. Then the roof, of course, is going to be made out of ramps, because that's the best way for these Greek-themed builds. Just going to go all the way along the top of the wall like this. And of course, making it come down on the other side here once again. Just like that. Bringing it all the way back. Making sure that we have a beam across the top of the roof here. All the way to the other side as well. And then on the inside, we actually want to use thin pillars, and we want to line them up with wherever we had a big pillar on the other side. So gaps of 2 every time, and just bringing them along like this. And then if you want to have extra details, you can also have some of these railings on the inside, change them to the Frontier skin. I think is quite nice, or use wooden ones right away. And then of course, we also want to make sure that we fill in the doors here to these double doorways, and those are going to be once again the great variation to create a nice little open wall design. Then here on the other side, we're going to do something pretty much the exact same. So after a gap of 2, we're going to have a pillar, another gap of 2, a pillar, and another gap of 2, another pillar. We're going to have these double doorways once again all the way going to the other side, and we'll fill in the little ledge with the quarter ceilings going across these walls up until where the greenhouse is going to be. And then we can fill in our ramps all the way across this other side. Then, of course, just repeating what we've done before, making this little roof for this wall section like this. And then mirroring that what we have on the other side, adding in these pillars every other 2. Just like that, and you can add in whatever details you want below, but of course make sure to add in the doors so that we have our actual wall intact. Now here on the front, what we want to do is just add pillars to these 2 corners right there, and the same thing right over here. Then of course we'll take out our double doors again, place them like so everywhere, and of course we'll create a little lip of these quarter ceilings on both of these sides, so that we can have our little roof going across with the ramps once again. Just mirroring this for both of these because it's going to be the exact same principle, of course. Just like that, we're going to fill these all in. And then, of course, here we're going to also have the thin pillars for the inside of the courtyard. And we want to make sure that we have a beam going across the top of all of these roofs if we haven't done so yet, just to create that little bit of extra details. And of course, we want to fill in the sides with our doors so that we have those nice grates everywhere. And then we're almost getting to a full compound. Of course, we need to make the gateway, we need to make the little watchtower and the little greenhouse to the side, as well as, of course, the courtyard itself. Now, before we start building the greenhouse on this corner, this is how I originally built it, with the shallow Greek roof using the ramps. But unfortunately, of course, we do not have greenhouse ramps, which means you lose any greenhouse effectiveness on the inside, even if you have the walls and everything be made out of greenhouse stuff. So you need to decide, either you go for this shallow look that we've done so far, which fits the Greek theme, or you go for the more pointy roof using extra roof so that you have full greenhouse everywhere, and then it should be all safe to use and actually give you the effectiveness as well. So we're going to make the variant with the normal ramp roof, but yeah, if you want the greenhouse effectiveness, now you know you'll need to add a steeper roof and of course build it out of greenhouse stuff. For now, we're going to add pillars too high to each of these corners, and the ones on the outside we want to connect into the ground. Not that one on the inside of the compound. We'll fix those later. But for now, we want to make sure that all of these are too high. Then we want to have double doors leading into these walls. And then the rest of it, we can just have full walls. Now, of course, this would normally be greenhouse walls if you're actually gonna go for the greenhouse design, but for now we can just fill all of these walls in nice and easy, just so that we can fully utilize this space. Then we want to just go for this. So if you're doing the greenhouse design, so we want to add these little quarter ceilings right here to the sides as well, just like that. Now, just to show you, if you were going for the greenhouse design and you're building this out of greenhouse materials, what you would do is you would start the same. You would start with these sloped walls. Then you would, of course, have the full walls, and you would have sloped walls up here so that you can use the actual roofs, or the greenhouse roofs in that case, to create the effectiveness. I do not like these steep roofs for the Greek buildings, so I would rather have less effectiveness and have a nice looking base. But of course, that is up to you, what you find more important. But in our case, we're going to do this with these little quarter walls and create the nice shallower Greek roofs, just as we've done for all of these. Once more, the ramps are going to fit right inside of these. If you're on official settings, if you have overlapping, we're going to snap them right through the edges here and then bring them back up to the middle and do the same thing for the other side, filling in the entire roof. And yeah, there we go. That is a little greenhouse building. Then of course we want to make sure to have a beam across the top of the roof as well. But yeah, there we go. Nice and simple. And of course, don't forget to add in the doors to your little greenhouse in the corner too. Then it's time for the entrance. We want to just add a gateway at this end, and then at the front, another gateway like this. Of course, add in the actual gate. I won't only do that here on the outside. I don't really think you need it on the inside of your compound. But yeah, there we go. That's the start of all this. Then what we want to do is we want to make sure to have double doorways going into these walls, just so you have some side entrances for those. And then we can fill in the rest with the normal walls, just like this on both sides. And then above that layer, what I would do is a layer of windows going all the way from one side to the next, just like this. And of course, adding in the actual windows themselves too. There we go. Then it's time to start creating the roof. We just want to take out our stone ramps, snap them to these walls, and just start filling them in from start to finish quite easily and bring the beam across the top. Now, in order to fill in these top parts, we kind of need something to snap to. So what you might want to do is just add a little layer of these quarter ceilings going across both sides, because then we can actually snap or slope walls to the end of it to create the full walls there. There we go. So very nice and simple for the entrance. And of course here at the front, either at ramps or stairs, so you can easily get in and out of that building. So like once again, very simple build, but effective as a little entrance to the compound. Then it's time for the little watchtower here on the corner. We want to start out with our pillars going 3 high every corner of this little square, just like that. And once again, the ones on the outside we want to connect all the way into the ground, not that one on the inside. Here in the middle we want to have some windows, and then on the other ends we want to have some doorways leading into these walls, and then the rest of them we can just start filling in just like that, making sure that we have a 2 high wall all the way around this little tower. It's just going to be a very small tower, nothing too major. For this layer we want to start adding in the ceilings, but we want to leave the middle one right there open. And then of course what we want to do is add some railings around the outside so you don't fall out of the little watchtower. There we go, all the way around and to the sides of this hall. Then we want to take out our staircase. We want to make sure that we get this nice one with the curve going down just like this into this building. And then what you could do is you could add a pillar in here, but you don't really need it because the Astraeos staircases already look quite nice and supported in their own right. There we go, that is the start. Then for this top layer we want to take out our quarter ceilings. All of this top thing that we're now starting with the ceilings, I would change to the frontier skins or make out of wood if you do not have those skins. And then we'll go all the way to the other side and just kind of make a circle like this to begin with. And then I'm not quite sure if this trick works on official, but it worked for me when I built this, so that's what we're going to use. We're going to use temporary pillars everywhere like this, just to kind of create some snapping points. For me this worked. It might not work for you. I don't know why. ARK can be weird sometimes, but we want to start bringing out these beams sticking out from the little quarter ceilings that we've just made, and that is kind of going to create a really nice little design. Again, I'm not quite sure if this is going to work for you. It worked for me. Otherwise, I'm sure there's other ways to come up with a nice, satisfying ending for this roof, but this just really felt appropriate for these type of gardens. So that's what we want. And then what I was able to do was to remove all of these little pillars that we used for the snapping points, and the other ones, the beams, they should all stay for some reason. Not quite sure why that is, but it worked for me, so hopefully it works for you as well, because you get a really nice effect. Then what I would choose to do is to connect some of these from one side to the other. Now, once again, this might not work for you, and then you'll have to, I guess, think of a little bit of a different design, but it works for me, and you can get a really nice little open garden watchtower here. And then what I would also do is just to kind of get these snap points and get them through from one side to the other. We can't do that here because, of course, you can't go through the middle of the pillar, but that snap point should still be available. And then we have a lovely little garden to enjoy on top of the watchtower, to enjoy the views of your villa and all the way around. Then, of course, we want to make sure that we add in the doors and windows for this part. So also add in these doors. And there we go. That is all the main builds done. Then, of course, it's time to take a look at the inside here itself. Now, there's many different ways, of course, to decorate the inside of this courtyard. I'm going to assume you're using vanilla structures. If you have ASR, for example, you, of course, also have quarter thatch foundations, which makes it able to be a lot more free with the way you decorate all of this. But for now, what we're going to do, first we're going to start back here. We're going to add thatch foundations in this little section. This is going to be a nice bit of green garden all the way from one end to the other, and that's just to kind of create some nice greenery. We're actually going to remove this one because this is going to be one of the pathways. It's going to be too wide from one side to the other. It's going to stop right here in the middle. We're going to bring this back here so you can also walk into that archway, and this should be a nice walkway into the main entrance. Now, I personally would love some big gardens here. So for starters, I'm going to add in a nice big field of grass right here. And that way we can get some greenery in here. Then you would fill in these with normal foundations again. And that's kind of how you can create these. I would paint these, of course. You can paint them any kind of green. I usually go for the filth color. But yeah, just try around and see what you like best. Then maybe over here we want another little patch of garden. So what we could do is maybe add them in right over here. Or if you want to keep this walkway available, you can of course make sure that you fill this in first and make sure that you keep that as part of the walkway. And then, for example, you might want to keep this walkway as well. So we have that going through from one side to the other. Now you could add in another nice garden here, or maybe you want to add in a pool. Now the pool is actually quite easy because what you would do is you just basically just fill it all in with foundations, and then whenever you decide what you're going to use as a pool, you want to use a custom cosmetic for that. There's a few out there, but the Wild Water one is a free one and it's quite easy to use. So what you would do is change the foundations that you want to be your pool into the water skin, just like that, and then you have a nice little pool. You can make it smaller, of course, if you want to, and this will just still be foundations. It just looks like water, so you can create your nice little courtyard out here, and yeah, quite easy to do. Then of course you still need to start skinning the base. Now most of this are going to be any of the Astraeos variants, of course. To create the roofs you'll need the third variant to have the less steep slope. You'll need the second or third variant for the ramps themselves. What I do is these beams at the top, I change those to the frontier skins, as well as any of the beams beneath or above the windows that we've created. That's kind of what you want to use the frontier skin for, as well as these middle bits, these doorways. The doors themselves you change to the third variant of the Astraeos skin, and then you basically go all the way around. Now of course this takes a little bit of time, but you get a really cool effect, and I'll show you the exact way that I skinned it in my build. So here we go. This is the villa once it's all skinned. We'll quickly go over which skins I used where, so you can kind of get a rough idea of what I would do. If you want to see the exact way that I skinned this, I did stream this build, so you can check that out as well. I'll make sure to link the full stream. You will see some extra decorations. I've used JVH landscaping for all these plants on the sides, as well as to create these little gardens. If you're playing without mods, of course, what you could do is go around with your shovel and plant pot from the Bob Trolltails DLC, get some plants, and try to create a little bit of a garden out here as well. But you can see with mods, of course, you can quite easily do that. I've got some decoration pieces from the Roman custom cosmetic, as well as some statues, of course, from the Astraeos one. The braziers and the torches are all from the Roman custom cosmetic. This is from the Klinger mod, the Klinger's rustic structures. And I also have some from the CKF mod, so castles, keeps, and forts, which is really cool. Yeah, just to kind of create some life out here. But you can see this looks quite cozy. We have the little greenhouse going on in here, just very nice and simple, and then the watchtower. But first, let's take a look at what we skinned where. So as I said before, with the frontier skins, you want to do the top of these roofs as well as the door frames themselves. Also, all of these potential railings that you might have added, or the underside, these little quarter ceilings I usually like to skin with the frontier skins as well. The beams at the bottoms of windows, that is most of it. And then of course these stairs, these railings, and these ceilings here, I also use the frontier skin for, just because I really like the contrast the wood makes with the Astraeos skins. As for the Astraeos skins for the roof, quite simple. You use the second variant for the top layer, the third variant for the bottom layer. Of course, we have the third variant for these sloped walls. We have the second variant that I used here. The first variant for the empty ones. The third variant at the top of the wall. Then we have the second variant 2 times. Then we have the third variant here at the bottom of this layer as well. And then we have 2 first variants. But the bottom one, you can change them. So this is what the first variant look like. You can interact and you can get the bricks themselves. So that is the bottom layer of the entire main building. Then we have the fancy third variant first. Then we have 2 walls of the second variant, and then another layer of the third variant. For the windows themselves, of course, you use the third variant to get the great door, and then the second variant to create the slopes in case you were able to do that. The pillars, you just want to build up like this to create some nice pillars. Speaks for itself, I think. And then, of course, all the curves are the second variant to get the slope walls looking very cool like that. And yeah, then you kind of just go around, use that principle everywhere. These windows on the inside are the first variant as well. And then for the doors, I kind of use them mixed of every one of them. I think this is the second variant that we have for the balcony. We have the first variant here just to kind of utilize most of that. But that's kind of what you want to do to get the whole build skinned and looking nice like this. So not too weird, not too special. But if you want to see the full skinned effect, you can always watch the last part of the stream where I did that. But I feel like it should be pretty straightforward if you start using these Astraeos structure skins. Let's take a quick look around. So this is the gateway you can enter the courtyard from. You have the little greenhouse here in the corner as I showed before. Then you have the little watchtower here. I think I made this a little hatchery to kind of decorate it. Then you got a way up, of course, to enjoy the view from your little watchtower out here. And then we have, of course, the lovely courtyard with some of the Astraeos statues around just to create a little bit more grandeur. I feel like that's very appropriate if you have a villa like this. We got some more statues back there too. Then we can enter the main building. You'll see a little bit of a storage system down here. I personally use visual storage, but of course this same structure works with just vaults or storage cabinets. That is all fine. We got a little bit more structures out here. Access to our balcony, of course, as well as some of the bigger structures like the grinder. The industrial forge is placed right here with the Amisa skins. And then that is kind of the whole downstairs area. We have some barrels around as well. And then at the top, we have all of the other crafting things. So the camp bench, the refrigerator, water here, the grill, the cooker, the fabricator, the tinkering desk, and of course the smithy itself, as well as some places to hang out. We have the clock right here, and that leads to our bedroom that is out here with some libraries. The access, of course, to a little balcony out here. And yeah, of course, we have a balcony here in the middle too to enjoy. So nice and cozy, but plenty of space, I feel like, to utilize for your base design. And then, of course, in my case, I had this little area here where I created these stairs down to a little fishing dock, but that is very specific to the location. But I do think you could definitely use this villa as a very nice base, and of course perfectly themed for this Astraeos DLC map. Anyway, if you enjoyed this build tutorial and you found it useful, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course feel free to leave a comment down below with a suggestion for a build that you would like to see next. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.